like a buttercup. You're a Barbie doll. Show them all what I'm made of. Strut down the hall. Won't stop till I get enough.
All right, so we're back. And today we're diving into something, well, it's pretty heavy stuff. The allegations against Sean Diddy Combs, it's a lot. And I know a lot of you wanted us to really get into it, beyond the headlines and all that. So we got the court documents, we got articles, the whole 9 yards. And before we get into all that, let's do a quick recap, right? Diddy, the guy's, well, he's hip-hop royalty, right? Rapper, producer, built a whole empire.
Yeah.
But lately, his legacy's been, how do I put this?
Tarnished?
Yeah, tarnished by all these accusations, and it's a lot to untangle.
Yeah, and it doesn't help that, Combs is actually in prison right now.
Right. And it's important to make that clear. He's locked up on charges that have, nothing to do with the sexual assault stuff we're diving into today.
Exactly. Separate charges altogether.
Yeah, like racketeering, sex trafficking, fraud, coercion, transporting women for prostitution.
Serious stuff. It's all from a federal indictment.
Heavy stuff, man. But all right, let's shift gears here, get to what you guys really wanted, the sexual assault allegations. And what's really wild is that these accusations, they go back, like way back.
Decades, actually. I think the best way to approach this, to really make sense of it, is to go chronologically. See how this pattern of accusations kind of unfolds over time.
Lay it on us.
Okay, so we got to rewind the clock all the way back to 1990 with Liza Gardner.
All right, 1990, Liza Gardner. Who is she? What's her connection to Diddy?
So Gardner, she claims she met Diddy at some event at MCA Records. And then, get this, she was invited back to Aaron Hall's place.
Aaron Hall, wow, the R&B singer.
One and the same. Yeah, part of the group Guy.
Yeah, big back in the day. Okay, so what happened at Aaron Hall's place?
So according to the lawsuit, Gardner, she said she was coerced into having sex with Diddy, and that afterwards Hall barged in and assaulted her too.
Whoa, that's a lot to process.
It is. Both Diddy and Hall, they've denied the allegations, of course.
Of course, but man, that's a rough start to this whole string of accusations.
Yeah. And from this alleged incident at a private residence, we move to another accusation, this time at a much more public setting. It's 2000, and this one involves Jane Doe.
Jane Doe.
And she alleges that she claims she was raped by both Diddy and Jay-Z.
Wait, Jay-Z after the MTV Video Music Awards after party?
That's right.
That is huge. I mean, Jay-Z, another hip-hop icon, dragged into this. This brings up, some really serious legal and ethical questions. And for our listeners who might not know, the accusation involving a minor, that's about as serious as it gets.
Absolutely.
I mean, what are your thoughts just on the potential implications for Jay-Z specifically?
Well, it's hard to overstate how serious this is. I mean, a rape accusation involving a minor. Jay-Z, he's denied everything, of course, calls it an extortion attempt, even filed a motion to try and, reveal Jane Doe's identity. Wow.
And the fact that this allegedly happened after, like you said, such a huge public event, the VMAs, it kind of makes you think about the dark side of the music industry, doesn't it?
It does. And it makes you wonder what else goes on behind closed doors.
Yeah, it really does.
So from alleged incidents at private parties, we shift to, a pattern of accusations involving travel and coercion. In 2003, we have Anna Cain, the ex-wife of NHL player Evander Kane.
Okay, Anna Cain, what's her story?
Well, she alleges she was trafficked across state lines when she was just 17 and gang raped by Diddy, Harve, Pierre, and a third unnamed person.
Harve Pierre, he was a big name at Bad Boy Records, right?
High-ranking executive, yeah.
Wow. So what details do we have from Cain's account?
She claims she met Pierre in Detroit, got convinced to fly in a private jet to Diddy's recording studio in New York, and then, according to her, she was drugged and assaulted.
Man, that's heavy stuff.
It is. And, Pierre's denied the allegations, and Diddy, he hasn't really said anything publicly about them.
Huh.
And this pattern of silence from Diddy, it kind of becomes even more unsettling when we get to a later incident involving his son, Christian.
Right, his son. And this is where things get even more, murky, maybe? I mean, does this point to a culture of, impunity? Like, does Diddy's wealth, his influence, does it shield people around him from accountability?
I think that's a question investigators are definitely going to be asking. So the accusations surrounding Christian, they stem from an incident back in 2022 on a yacht, chartered by his father, of course.
Of course.
A steward on the yacht, a woman named Grace O'Marcaille, she accused Christian of sexual assault and battery.
Okay, what happened on the yacht?
Omar Kai claims she was forced to take a, quote, spiked shot of tequila, that she was groped and then assaulted by Christian. She reported it all to the captain, but says there was a cover-up. She alleges Diddy gave the captain a huge tip to keep quiet about the whole thing.
Man, that's messed up. It's like it's not just about one incident, it's a whole system, maybe, of silencing victims.
And protecting those in power.
Right. And so that brings us to another piece of this whole puzzle. We have Rodney Jones, also known as Lil Rod, the music producer. He filed a lawsuit against Diddy earlier this year, claims sexual harassment, assault. What's the story there?
So Jones's lawsuit, this one brings in another big name, Cuba Gooding Jr., the actor.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he alleges that Gooding groped him on Diddy's yacht back in 2023. And that Diddy, he left Jones alone with Gooding, even though Jones was uncomfortable.
Man, these yachts, they were supposed to be symbols of success, right? Luxury, but now it's like they're at the center of all this darkness.
Yeah, it's a tough image to reconcile.
It is. So Gooding, he's denied the allegations, right?
Like so many others in these lawsuits, he's denied everything. But Jones's lawsuit goes even further. He implicates Young Miami.
Young Miami. Okay, so this is where things get really serious. I mean, what are the specific allegations against Young Miami, and how does this all tie into those accusations of, a sex trafficking operation?
Well, Jones claims that Young Miami was involved in transporting drugs for Diddy and that she was, one of several women who were allegedly paid to be his sex workers.
Wow. That's a huge accusation, especially considering Young Miami's career, her public image.
Exactly.
Go.
And it gets even more disturbing when you consider another allegation from a Jane Doe. This Jane Doe claims that Young Miami, she pressured her to have an abortion at Diddy's request.
That's a whole other level. So we're talking about potential coercion, manipulation, and maybe even controlling women's reproductive choices.
That's what the allegations suggest, yeah.
Has Young Miami responded to all of this?
She has. She denies everything, calls all the allegations completely false.
Of course, it's important to remember innocent until proven guilty. That's a cornerstone of our legal system. But man, as we go deeper into all of this, into this web of accusations, you start to see patterns emerging.
You do. And those patterns, especially the ones that suggest, the exploitation of women who are in vulnerable positions, that's something we got to pay attention to. It's a lot, isn't it? And if even some of these accusations are true, it really paints a picture of power and influence being used in the wrong way. And speaking of influence, there's another layer to this. It involves someone who, he's known for his connections to, the biggest names in hip-hop, Jacob Arabeau, better known as Jacob the Jeweler.
Oh, yeah, Jacob the Jeweler. I mean, the guy's practically a legend himself. You're right. He's made pieces for, everyone in hip-hop. So how does he fit into all of this?
Well, there's a woman who claims she worked at one of Diddy's, those infamous white parties he used to throw.
Right.
She filed a complaint alleging that Diddy forced her to have sex with Arabeau, who was a guest at the party.
Man, those parties, they've become, this legendary thing in hip-hop, right? These extravagant gatherings, the elite. But this accusation, it kind of throws a dark cloud over that whole image.
Exactly. It's another example of how these allegations are really challenging the stories we tell ourselves about wealth and fame.
Yeah, it's a reminder that these aren't just abstract legal cases, right? We're talking about real people, real stories of potential trauma, abuse. And that brings us to a crucial point. We can't just look at these as isolated incidents. They point to, deeper issues within the music industry, especially when it comes to power dynamics, how women are treated.
You're absolutely right. We're talking about an industry that often, it glorifies wealth, power, hypermasculinity, you could say.
Yeah.
And within that culture, there's a history of silencing women, brushing accusations aside, protecting the powerful men.
It's like the perfect storm almost, right? You have these young, aspiring artists, often vulnerable, eager to please, and they run into these powerful figures like Diddy, who can, make or break their careers.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
And when you combine that power imbalance with a culture that often looks the other way, it creates an environment where exploitation can thrive.
You've painted a pretty bleak picture here. Is there another side to this story? Are there any legal experts or people in the industry who, offer a different perspective on Diddy's actions?
It's important to note that Diddy and his legal team, they've denied everything vehemently. Their argument is that these accusations are, they're part of a coordinated effort to extort money from him, tarnish his reputation. Some people also point to the fact that a lot of these allegations are coming out well, decades after the alleged incidents. Raises questions about, the reliability of memories, motives for coming forward now.
That's a good point. Memories can be unreliable, and motives can be, well, complicated. It's up to the courts to sort through it all and figure out what really happened.
Exactly. And while the legal process plays out, it's important to, approach these allegations carefully and not jump to conclusions. Innocent until proven guilty, that's a bedrock principle.
Right, right. So what does all this mean? What impact could these allegations have on the music industry going forward?
Well, it's hard to say for sure, but I think we're at a turning point, maybe. The hashtag #MeToo movement, it's really brought these issues to the forefront. There's a growing demand for accountability. These allegations against Diddy, especially with, how many there are and how serious they are, it could be a catalyst for some real change, systemic change.
It's a turning point not just for the music industry, but for society in general. The whole conversation around power, consent, accountability, it's evolving, and these allegations are a stark reminder that no industry is immune.
And it's not just about high-profile cases like this one. It's about creating a culture where everyone feels safe, empowered to speak up, no matter their position or status.
We can only hope that these allegations, no matter the outcome, will serve as a wake-up call for the music industry and beyond.
I agree. It's a wake-up call we all need to pay attention to. We each have a responsibility to challenge those structures that perpetuate abuse and to create a world where everyone is treated with respect and dignity.
Powerful words. And it's a message that resonates way beyond music. It applies to every industry, every workplace, every interaction we have. We all have a role to play in building a more just and equitable society.
Absolutely. And that starts with listening to and believing survivors, holding perpetrators accountable, creating a culture where everyone feels safe and empowered to speak their truth.
We've covered a lot today, some very serious and sensitive allegations. It's a lot to process, and it's easy to feel overwhelmed by the sheer complexity of it all. But as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I'm left with a profound sense of hope.
Hope in the midst of all this.
Yeah, hope. Because even though these allegations are deeply disturbing, they've started a conversation that we needed to have about power, accountability, consent.
That's true. The fact that we're having this conversation at all, that these issues are being brought to light, It's a sign of progress.
Exactly. And it's a reminder that change is possible, but it takes a collective effort. We can't just sit back and wait for someone else to fix it. We all have a role to play.
One thing that struck me throughout this deep dive is the courage it took for these individuals to come forward with their accusations.
Yeah, it really makes you think about, all the stories that we don't hear, the ones that stay hidden.
Right. How many people have suffered in silence because they were afraid to speak up. It really says a lot about power dynamics, not just in music, but everywhere, really.
And it shows how important it is to create spaces where people, feel safe sharing their experiences, even if it means, going up against powerful people. You mentioned earlier that Diddy and his team, they've denied everything. They say it's all about, trying to get money from him, hurt his reputation. Are there, any legal experts or anyone in the industry who sees it that way?
Oh, there are definitely people who think Diddy's being unfairly targeted. Some argue that, the fact that many of these accusations are coming out so long after the alleged events, it raises questions about, how reliable they are.
Right.
They also point out that there haven't been criminal charges in a lot of these cases, which suggests that maybe the evidence isn't strong enough for a prosecution.
That's a good point for our listeners, the difference between civil lawsuits and criminal charges. Can you break that down for us a little?
Sure. So basically, civil lawsuits, they're about getting financial compensation for damages, while criminal charges, they're about, holding someone accountable for a crime through the legal system. Not every allegation of wrongdoing leads to criminal charges. And even if someone's found liable in a civil case, it doesn't necessarily mean they committed a crime.
So someone could be found, responsible for causing harm in a civil court, but not face criminal penalties.
Exactly. And that's where, due process comes in. It's this fundamental legal principle that makes sure everyone gets a fair hearing, an impartial one. It means that the burden of proof, it's on the accuser. And the accused, they're innocent until proven guilty.
That's important to remember, especially in a case like this where public opinion can really influence how people see things, whether someone's guilty or innocent. It seems like these allegations against Diddy are really pushing the boundaries of our legal system, forcing us to look at some hard truths about power, fame, and accountability.
You got it. This case, with all its accusations, the legal details, the cultural impact, it's like a mini version of what's happening in society as a whole. It makes us ask some tough questions. How do we balance the rights of the accused with protecting potential victims? How do we deal with power imbalances and make sure everyone, no matter how famous or influential they are, is held accountable for their actions?
Those are questions we're still figuring out as a society. And, while there aren't any easy answers, the fact that we're having these conversations, it's a good sign.
I agree. And this deep dive, I think it shows how important critical thinking is. Looking past the headlines, considering different perspectives. It's easy to get caught up in the drama of a case like this, but we have to approach these issues with nuance and empathy.
Well said. And as we wrap up this deep dive, I'm feeling cautiously optimistic, maybe. These allegations against Diddy, as troubling as they are, they've started a conversation that goes way beyond the music industry.
It's a conversation about who we are as a society, how we treat each other, the balance of power, our responsibility to make the world a safer, more respectful place for everyone.
And I think that's where the real hope is, in our willingness to have these tough conversations, challenge the status quo, and hold each other accountable. Thanks for joining us on this journey, everyone. We encourage you to keep learning about these issues, stay informed, and use your voice to make a difference. Until next time.
Sound the alarm. I'm coming up. We'll have a ball. I'm sweet like a buttercup. You're Bobby doll. Show them all what I'm made of. Strut down the hall. Won't stop till I get enough.